Last season, the Timberwolves made their first Western Conference Finals appearance in 20 years, and only the second in franchise history. There's a real argument to be made that it was the greatest season the team had ever had. They had the best defense in the league, with a defensive rating a whole 2 points better than the next closest team. They had the Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert. They had 2 All-Stars in Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns, 2 homegrown talents that they had selected number 1 overall. They built an identity of going big when the league had gone small, starting 2 7-footers in Towns and Gobert. Gave another center heavy minutes off the bench in Naz Reid, and had a Swiss Army knife defender in Jaden McDaniels, who had been rumored to grow to a staggering 6'11" at their small forward spot. They were the only team we've seen been able to slow down 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic, and eliminated the Nuggets last postseason. It felt as if a window of contention had opened in Minnesota for the first time in a long time, if not truly the first time ever. And now, on a Friday night in September, it feels as if they threw it all away in what was secretly a salary dump. Last night, the Timberwolves traded 2024 All-Star Karl-Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a protected first-round pick. It was truly a stunner that seemed to catch everyone off guard just before the start of NBA Media Days. But before we get into what the team will look like this season and what changes with this deal, let's spend some time on Towns. He was drafted by Minnesota with the first overall pick in 2015 and was seen as the potential savior of the franchise. To say that the team has dealt with dysfunction over his time there would be an understatement. They went through 5 different head coaches during his time there and only managed 3 playoff berths in 9 seasons. But Towns didn't ask out or seek a trade as many others in today's game would have. He stuck with this team through thick and thin, and was on the record saying he dreamed of retiring with Minnesota. Despite the instability around him, Towns managed 4 All-Star berths and 2 All-NBA selections with the team, and is widely considered one of, if not the, greatest shooting big man of all time. When the team shifted towards an Anthony Edwards-focused offense, he didn't get upset. And when the team traded for an all-star center in Rudy Gobert, which is Towns' natural position, he didn't get upset. He accepted his new role and blossomed as an all-star power forward last season, adjusting to life alongside Gobert and taking his defense to a new level last season. The team would not have reached nearly the level of success they did without him. But despite all he did for Minnesota, they traded him without seemingly giving him a warning. At least that's what his post on Twitter just minutes before the trade would make it seem. With a potential new owner stepping in, it was clear that they didn't want to keep Towns' Supermax contract or remain a second apron team. So Towns had to go. But what does this mean for the T-Wolves going forward? Losing Towns, again arguably the greatest shooting big we've ever seen, could spell doom for the team's spacing, which is vital when your star player loves attacking the rim as much as Anthony Edwards. While some may say that going from Towns to Randle isn't a massive talent downgrade, and they may not be wrong, as Randle's 93rd offensive percentile according to Crafted NBA is superior to Towns' 89th. But it's about the fit. Randle can get his own bucket, sure, but the spacing will take a noticeable dip. Towns shot nearly 40% from beyond the arc last season, while Randle shot just 33%. And while the efficiency itself is a tough pill to swallow, the respect the two players garner is vastly different. Towns was heavily respected as a shooter, drawing his defenders far away from the basket, as they knew they needed to stay attached to him at all times. On the flip side, Randle's defenders are often seen sagging off of him towards the paint, as they know he is most dangerous near the basket and not beyond the arc. So when Edwards attacks downhill, that's one more defender waiting for him than he had last season. But a poorly kept secret about the Wolves last year was that their spacing was already holding on by a thread, and that thread was Towns. The likely starting lineup we'll see from Minnesota this season is Mike Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, Randle, and Gobert. Only a single player in that group shot over 40% from 3 last season, and Gobert is a complete non-factor as a spacer. The best of that group was Conley, who shot a fiery hot 44% from deep last season. However, that was a career high from the soon-to-be 37-year-old point guard, 3% better than his next best season. In that lineup I mentioned, all the perimeter attention will be on Conley, as he's the only proven threat from beyond the arc, and this could mean a dip in his efficiency. If Jaden McDaniels can return to the 40% clip we saw in 2023, it could relieve a lot of pressure on the offense. But his regression to just 35% last season means that the 2023 season could have been kind of fluky. But you may be saying to yourself, Herm, they got a sharpshooter in the deal. And you're right, they did. Donte DiVincenzo is coming off the best season of his career, setting the Knicks franchise record for made threes in a season, and shooting over 40% from deep despite the high volume at nearly 9 attempts a game. He secretly might be the more important piece in the deal coming back to Minnesota, as he feels like the ideal fit in an Anthony Edwards-led backcourt. However, there's just no real way to sneak him into the starting lineup. Gobert is coming off a DPOY season, Randle was an all-star in his last healthy season, McDaniels is arguably the best perimeter defender in the league today, Edwards is obviously in there, and Conley is the only real playmaker on the squad. The obvious omission would seem to be Conley, but from what we saw last season, Edwards isn't ready to become a full-time point guard for this offense. He's just not suited for it at this point. Randle does bring some jumbo playmaking ability from the 4 spot, but would that be enough to offset the loss of Conley in the starting 5? I'd personally lean towards no. So while I like the depth of this team, with Donte, Naz Reid, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker coming off the bench, the spacing with the starting 5 is going to be very difficult. It will take either a coaching masterclass from Chris Finch, or heavy improvement from key guys to offset the glaring issues. Losing the 2-center approach also diminishes their greatest strength, as it gave them matchup advantages against smaller teams like the Thunder and was their secret weapon at containing Jokic as best as possible. As I've heard many others talk about, they just feel easier to scheme against, and when we hit the postseason, good coaches will make their weaknesses even more glaring than they seem right now. The Minnesota Timberwolves just destroyed a contender themselves. Thanks for watching. I'm Herm. Have a good one.